Good evening, Banger Racing fans, and welcome to episode 37 of Cage Full Throttle. Ed Fahey here in for Matt Josie, and not Dara O'Brien, as some people might have thought. Coming up over the next hour, we'll have the latest news and reviews from the world of Banger Racing, including Yarmouth Banger World Series, Tullaroan Shamrock, Ringwood Cheetahs, and Eastbourne Micro teams. But before we do that, let's meet our two panellists. He's up past his bedtime. It's our resident youth, Jordan Hollins.
Good evening, Ed. And yes, up past my bedtime only for tonight and for future podcasts, so think yourselves all lucky.
Very much so. And it's our very own member of the Orange Army, and that's before he puts on his marshal's overalls. It's James Keane.
Oh, thank you for that very kind introduction, Ed. Hello, everyone listening at home. Hello, Jordan. I'm sure we've got a great show coming up tonight. I'm glad to be here again.
That's good. Maybe a glass of water there, James, might help. But anyway, let's move on to discussions. We two very good meetings in the last 2 weeks, but unfortunately they've kind of been remembered for more unfortunate reasons than what they should have been. Let's start with the Banger World Series at Yarmouth. With a fantastic Banger World Series racing, the cars actually wanted to hit each other and turn around and go the wrong way. But something happened that was a bit unfortunate. Can you tell us about that, James?
Yeah, so the actual Banger World Series wildcard race was delayed by approximately an hour and a half. Again, like you said, up until that point, the meeting was as expected, things were happening. But then the Superstocks driver, Declan Salmon, was put into the wall. Well, not the wall, the post and wire, that's the point. And due to the construction of the Superstocks, the height of the bumper went between the post and went below the wire and into the post, which caused huge damage to the Superstocks. And even though the driver did have to be extracted by the local county fire crew, the damage could have been a lot worse to the driver. It's one of those where you're looking at it and you're thinking that the instant argument was straight away was, why do we still have post and rail in these days? At Yarmouth, it's pretty much impossible to put anything else out there. I mean, the one thing that really does need to be said here is that Declan Salmon is able. He's injured, but still able to talk. He was able to talk to the emergency responders on the scene. Because it's treated as a serious accident, the local ambulance crews and fire crews had to come to attend to him. But I think the big thing is here as well is that everyone saw it on social media pretty much straight away before anyone knew what the status of the driver was as well, and I think that has contributed to this being such a huge event that's happened. I'm sure we're going to come on to the debate later about the safety of the sport and what could have been done. Without trying to be too controversial, I think the one thing that could have been done is he probably shouldn't have been followed in by the Superstocks driver behind him, but that's not for us to say. I'm sure that the relevant authorities are looking at that. I know we also pretty much saw the photos at the same time. It was one of those that the pit of your stomach feels, oh, that's bad, and then you're checking every 5 seconds just to get some news, just to make sure that the people involved have been okay. Ed and Jordan, you probably would have seen it about the same time as I did, because I was in a hotel in Aldershot, just finished working, when I got this message that there's been a huge accident, waiting to extract the driver. I mean, how did you guys feel when you first saw that?
Well, I think you pretty much summed it up perfectly. It was one of them crashes, one of them pictures, one of them incidents, really. Like, when you see it, it did make your stomach turn. And to be honest, you automatically thought the worst. Thankfully, obviously, as you've just said, Declan is okay. But yeah, it's led to the post and wire debate. And I know that obviously because Yarmouth run a lot of dog racing, I think it's every Thursday or every Tuesday and Thursday, that they can't get rid of the post and wire and replace it with Armco, as people have suggested. But also you've got to think as well about if the dog racing wasn't at Yarmouth, and if Speedref did say we've got to move the dog racing out because we need the Armco, I think it would ultimately lose the stadium a lot of money. And as we've seen with Wimbledon Stadium, I don't think that's feasible anymore. So yeah, I think keep the post and wire, because I don't actually think that's the problem. I think this is just a bit of a free kick incident where one driver's maybe seen the red mist and gone for a hit that maybe wasn't really there. It's just one of them things. I don't know what you think about it, Ed, but
Yeah, well, I mean, the way I'd see it is it's respect for the drivers. The old saying, you get in the driver's briefing, we all need to go to work the next day. So, unfortunately, Declan wasn't able to go to work the next day. Now, he seemed to be in very jovial spirits, and we wish him all the best on behalf of Cage. But, I mean, it should be the case of, you get up the next morning, you're a bit stiff, you're a bit sore. Yeah, that was really good. Not you wake up in hospital going, right, I need to have an operation here. Because he was saying something about he needed surgery of some kind on his leg. But he's actually, it's actually, his supporters have set up a GoFundMe page so you can make a contribution. We're going to be posting that link any second now on our Cage Facebook page if you want to support Declan, chip in anything you can. Every penny will count. So we're doing that. But I think
I've just posted it, so check out our Facebook page. It's on there now. I think the target's already been reached, but
I was going to say that, Jordan. It's like I think that's the one good thing you can say is the one thing you can say is with this sport that the target was reached within a couple of days. There was so many people, so many regular familiar names that you could see had denoted pretty much straight away, and I think it's just an absolute great example of how the sport does come together when one of our own gets hurt and is in the situation where they're not able to carry on with their day-to-day lives when all they really want to do is go out there, entertain the crowd and try and put on a good race.
I think the other shocking part of that Yarmouth Bangor World Series run was Jack Overy didn't finish a single race. So, I mean, that'll also go down in history. Jack's usually one for clocking up the points. But it seems to be a good beat of this.
Just quickly, for the Cage Dynavacs and maybe Paul Tower, this one's for you. When was the last time that Jack Overy failed to finish a race at any meeting? I'd really like to know the answer to that because Le Mans been on fire for the last few years, winning loads of championships and loads of races all over the country. So, let us know.
Well, at least it shows that Jack Overy is human, like every other driver. He's not just some kind of machine.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, is it a case of that he wanted to go crashing, or he just got caught up in the wrong place at the wrong time, or he fell to the old turning around rule by the looks of things?
He's already qualified, hasn't he?
Yeah, you'd say he has.
He has.
Just had some fun. Right, moving on. In Kings Lynn, there we had the 2-litre World of Shale National Championship. Congratulations to Jordan Cumming for winning that. But unfortunately, there was another incident which again was plastered all over social media within seconds of it happening. Jordan, can you tell us about it?
Yeah, obviously many of you know that the Saloon Stock Cars had their European Championship race at Kings Lynn on Saturday night. And in the build-up to the big championship race, there was a series of qualifying heats where drivers score points, and that will determine the grid for the European Championship. And in one of them, a spectacular incident, and quite a scary incident as well, saw Scottish driver 600 Barry Russell get shoved into the Armco before going up it like a ramp and actually over it and into the spectator catch fencing. A really scary incident, but thankfully I think everyone was okay. I know, looking on the funny side, there was someone that said that a guy standing close to where the incident occurred managed to run away and then go back and check on Barry to make sure he was okay without spilling a pint of his beer. So, fair play to that man because that is dedication there. But no, in all seriousness, it was a scary incident, and it has again brought about a discussion about whether an extra spectator fence is needed behind that catch fencing at Kings Lynn, a little bit like Arena Essex used to have.
So sorry, Ed. I was going to say after seeing the original video, the first thing that came to my mind was, does Lynn have a substantial bounce rope over the top of the wall like a lot of tracks do? I'm not sure it does, which is meant to stop cars riding up over the top of the wall.
Well, I think the issue that caused this accident was obviously with the shale track and the way the cars flick all the shale around. Basically, during the day, like, so if you go to shale tracks, the shale will get graded at some point. Basically, a tractor goes around, just kind of resurfaces the shale a bit. But a few people, I wasn't there myself, but a few people were saying that there was basically a mound of shale building up on the outside of the barrier every time. So that basically acted as a ramp, which launched Barry's car up and over. But I think it was one of the things, if you tried doing it again, you'd never be able to do it. So it'll be regarded as a freak accident. But I'd say just to probably keep a closer eye on the track, on the condition of the track. Like they might delay the start of the next race by 5 minutes so they can just grade the shale, keep them, as well as that it keeps the shale in good condition if they do grade it, because otherwise you get bogged down. You've no grip. I know grip on shale, contradicts myself, but no, I think this wouldn't happen again, even if you tried it, unless you put a big massive ramp up in front of the barriers. But I mean, you're not going to do that.
I suppose it's one of those things where the accident could always happen. The notices are up on the catch fence saying, "Please stand back from the catch fence." This is one of those reasons why.
I mean, I completely agree with what Ed was saying as well about the track grading, especially because Kings Lynn, the Kings Lynn Stars do also race at the track. And obviously for Premiership Speedway, the top league of English Speedway in this country, they do grade the track quite regularly during the meeting. So I don't know why the track wasn't graded on Saturday night, or even if it was graded, but that certainly did help. And regarding, as you said, James, motorsport is dangerous. We all know the risks. But personally, I've been to Kings Lynn 3 times now. On 2 of them occasions, I have stood by the catch fence, and I know some people do say it is dangerous, you shouldn't do it. But for me, that's part of the fun, and that's part of the risk and enjoyment that make this sport so fantastic, really. I know the risks associated with that. But I will also say that if you're standing at the back row, what's stopping a little bit of debris or a little bit of shell flying up from a car and hitting you there? I mean, it's nearly happened at Arena Essex when I've been there before. I remember bits of debris from a big hit came over the catch fencing, and I was sort of standing in the middle of the turn 3 and 4, and that went over my head. So
that is fair enough.
I don't think it's a case of standing by the fence. I think it's having your wits about you, always making sure that you're not only aware of what's happening at the track, but aware of what's coming off the track in a weird way.
But the other side of the
and I think, as I said, we all know the risks associated with it. So that's why it's printed on the tickets and is a way for every single stadium in the country.
The other side of that argument, though, is, George, I do seem to spend half my life running up and down the back straights of either Aldershot or Arlington, asking parents to not have their children basically climbing up the fence on the back. And I think this is the perfect example why they shouldn't be doing that, because I know what you're saying, because when you're there, you're taking photos, you're watching the race, you're keeping your wits about you. But if people think the catch fence is a force field that takes away all the danger, that can be a problem, especially when you've got young children trying to climb the catch fence, not watching, maybe playing around. I think there's two sides to that. They said if you want to go near the catch fence, please at least realise you might have to back away pretty quickly.
I mean, well, that's the thing, because I've stood at the catch fence in Kingston, and there are other occasions where I've stood back where, some stock cars have come flying in, or even some shell from the, I was at the F1 stock car meeting the other week, and I just got covered in it when a driver ran out wide and kicked up a load of shell. But what I would say is, them people saying that you should put another perimeter catch fencing around the outside, Personally, I don't think that's feasible at Kingsland, because although it's a big stadium, it's really lovely, Trackstar do a really good job of maintaining it. I think it would cut down their capacity.
Well, this is it, and I think you'll have people giving out as well, I can't see through that new fence, it's no good, so I'm not going to come racing anymore. But I mean, it does say, it is why you have the big sign up saying motorsport is dangerous. Whether you get run over or you get smacked in the head with a piece of shale, like that's happened to me a few times over at Kings Lynn. But I think it's just part of it, really. I mean, motorsport is dangerous. You're never going to make it completely safe. The only way to make it completely safe is to not to have it. And that's not what we want, really. So moving on then, we did Eastbourne Micros meeting, which was another lively session. I think, Jordan, you were keeping a close eye on that one.
No, it wasn't Jordan who was there, mate. It was me.
Oh, sorry, I do apologise. The script is a bit messed up here. I was playing the writer for that one. Yeah, go ahead, James.
Yeah, no. So down at Eastbourne, we had the annual four-a-side micro teams. It started off incredibly lively. For the amount of teams booked in, maybe it was not as many as people were hoping for, but it was 15 teams in total ended up turning out, including some regular big names. But I think a lot of people would have seen as being a talking point was that 84 Jack Ansell put out 2 teams of Team Peach, and there was also 2 teams of Dreamers out there, including a bit of a reunion because 106 Darren Terry Brand and friend of Cage. He's done an interview with Jordan. 243 Pete Osborne last minute took the seat of Ashley Squirrel Rummery, who couldn't make it, and it was one of those where it was the action was lively early on. There was a couple of loadings in the first couple of heats where people were turning around, despite at the driver's briefing being told there will be no turning around in this meeting, and it's one of those where the first 3 heats ended up meaning that the final and DD were not quite as good as could have been expected, because by the time that in the team meeting, if the rest of your team have already been destroyed, everyone was just already loading up. So the numbers dwindled throughout the day, but there was quite a lot of action on track. In the end, it was won by Dreamers B, manned by Jack Anscombe, Bodger, Harry Ailes, and I think one of his first times out in senior bangers. Harry Ailes obviously has done quite a lot for the Dreamers and junior bangers, and 556 Flip ended up taking the win at the end. It was quite fun to see Bodger back out in bangers since his move to 1300 stock cars. I did make a little joke to him as he was coming off track, saying, since you've gone into stock cars, has that made you a bit of a rodder now? Because he won the final. He won the final by quite some distance, actually. But as he was going off track, he then just laughed and said, "No, now I'm a stock car driver. I actually just want to drive to win." And it's taught me how to drive. I spoke to him today, actually, and he also said it was a bit of a last-minute decision. He took Ashley Rummery's seat at the last minute because he couldn't make it due to other commitments. And he was quite happy that in the heats he was able to put, in his own words, a couple of old enemies into the wall, and then also managed to get the win and win the team meeting overall. It was a good bank holiday meeting. It was one of those where the crowd would have gone home happy, hopefully. That's always what you want on a bank holiday Monday. So overall good meeting, some good team wars, including a team war that a lot of people assume is a little bit dead, but you can still bring the drivers out for it when they want to, and everyone was pretty entertaining overall.
That's good. That's what you want, really, isn't it? Then moving on to another meeting back in Dortweed, Ring with Cheetahs now, our beloved leader, Mr. Matt Josie, went there and took some fantastic photographs, and it looked like a really good fun meeting because you've an awful lot of old cars, but you've an awful lot of old drivers as well. And judging by Matt's photographs, the end of the day ended up in a proper jack and train. What do you think of it, Jordan?
Sorry, guys, have we lost Jordan?
I think we have, yeah.
I think we may have lost Jordan there. Sorry about that, everyone at home. What we have seen is that has been posted on the Cage Facebook page is obviously, like I said, our beloved leader Matt Josie was there right in the middle of the action as the photographer, and there was that excellent jacking train down the back straight for the Kaplan Cup. That I think it's almost like the archetypical what you expect from bangers at the end. And I've seen a few comments as well about how the grassroots tracks with their grass banks actually encourage that sort of racing. And it looks, from all the comments I've seen, like it was an excellent day. What else have you seen from there, Ed?
A serious amount of classic cars. It looks like a few leftovers from Stan Woods and a few fresh cars as well. Plenty of Jags, Woolseys, Rovers, all kinds of stuff. But it looked like everyone was just there to have a good day, have a bit of a laugh. mean, you don't normally get a big, massive, more than 10 cars in a jack and train these days. So anything like that is good to see. And a few of the older drivers came out as well, but they were helped out by some of the newer drivers who were obviously helped out with a car, helped out with transport, or even just assistance. So, I mean, that was a good meeting. It looked like a good meeting. That's what you want to see, really. You just want a bit of a laugh these days, rather than coming home.
Yeah, it looked like an excellent meeting, and it's. I think they knew they would get a lot more of the national scene turn up, so they split it in advance and asked who wants to go in for the nudge and spin heats, who wants to go in for the full contact heats. Apparently, both categories had a lot of action the whole way through. I think as an independent club, they put on pretty much everything to the limit they could. Split it in between the two categories, and from what I've seen as well, there were quite a few comments put up by the people who organise and run Ringwood Cheetahs, saying how they were really proud of everyone there on the day, drivers, spectators, officials, everyone the whole way through, about how it was absolute perfect day for them.
Well, that's good. I mean, it's always good for the promotion to say, thank you very much, everybody. Have a safe time. Come back again soon. I mean, that's a bit like the old-fashioned days, really, isn't it? But we'll move on from that then. I suppose my highlight of the season will be Shamrock, which was Sunday in Tullaroan. Not the best of Shamrocks. It certainly had its moments. Problem being that we didn't have as many entries as we normally would, and there was only enough entries for one grid, which is about, say, 22, 24 cars, and not loads of cars. But Joey Reynolds was a man on a mission that day. He managed to win the first heat, and he qualified in pole for the Shamrock final. And despite Stephen Bolton's best efforts, Joey literally pulled away. Now, full enough, I've not seen Joey Reynolds racing before, so I thought he'd be a bit like his brother Jack and literally just crashed his way through both heats. But no, Joey did very well, and he nearly managed to take the all-comers as well until the problem he pulled up. So, welcome back, Jordan. We're back.
I don't know what happened there. My microphone just sort of had a bit of a glitch. Sorry about that. It was all connected still, but yeah. Sorry to interrupt. Go on, carry on. Hopefully that won't happen again.
No, well, that's the ghost of Matt Josie haunting us. Come back, Matt. We love you.
Yeah, if it happens again, John, if you just send us a message saying red flags, we can stop it. It'll be fine.
Yeah, just pause the podcast, pause time, and then we can rejoin. No, sorry about that, everyone.
No worries. But Joey nearly got a hat trick because he nearly took the all-comers and he pulled up with a problem. But it was a good meeting. It had its moments. The other moment, of course, was Steve-O McGrath in his big Mercury, which he didn't race at Paddywhack. Steve-O literally decided to use the big Yang tank in the way big Yang tanks were meant to be raced, literally crashed into everything. He was on a mission at the DD. I think he jacked up about 5 cars. He put a few through the wall as well. But good entertainer for the day. So it's nice to see the bit of tin being used properly rather than just being the target. But he was the only Yank there in the day, but probably one of the faster cars there. The setup he had, and it was spot on. So that's the thing really with these days with bangers. Your car needs to be fast as well as strong. So I think he's both in good measures. Any opinions, Jordan or James?
Sorry, you go first, Jordan.
No. I was going to say, just that, despite the lower numbers than usual, for reasons obviously that you've already mentioned, it looked like a good meeting, to be honest. I know me and you spoke the other day, Ed, and you said, look, without Steve-O in his big Yank tank, it probably wouldn't have been the same. But I know that Stephen Boyd, Leonard Dunn, and Stephen Bolton all ended the day with pretty impressive wrecks, courtesy of Steve-O. So, it was good to see. And yeah, Shamrock lives on.
It does live on, but I talked to a few people in the pits that day. I think one of the reasons it didn't help the numbers was the timing, because obviously DMC race promotions, they work with Speedworth, so obviously everything needs to fit into the Speedworth calendar. So if there's any other big banger meetings or any other clashing meetings, they kind of have to struggle with it. And the issue that DMC would have as well is they need to run national hot rods now that Ballymena Raceway is gone. So there's actually national hot rods in support of unlimited bangers, which doesn't really happen very often these days. So obviously the national hot rod guys wanted a nice clean track that didn't have oil stains or grass all over it. But full enough, the bangers are actually very tidy today on the day, so there wasn't actually much track sweeping required at all. So everyone obviously respected each other.
So that's what I was going to say. You said that you were surprised Joey was so fast. Obviously, I got to see Joey a lot more racing, being based around Aldershot. But wasn't he? I think he was actually being put up by Adam Maxwell, who was racing in both categories. Obviously, himself a former gold top national hot rod world champion. So it can't be that surprising that they went out there so fast.
Well, bad influence, but I think Stephen Bolton, as well as he did, he was quietly fuming. He has said that he will not retire from bangers until he wins Shamrock. So I think he's had a few second places now. So always the bridesmaid, never the bride. But he'll be back. I'm sure a lot of others will too.
Well, given that no one really wants Leadfoot to ever retire, that's almost like an invitation for people to just turn around on him in Shamrock, right? Because he could never retire until that happens. It's fine.
But no, I mean, like every banger driver, his moment will come. I mean, he was a very, very deserving winner of the world final there in Ipswich year before last, so he seemed happy enough with that. But I mean, he can race and he can wreck as well. He's one of these drivers that likes to do both. So when the opportunity comes, you go for the win. And when the opportunity comes, you go for the jacking. Or like he was in the DD at Shamrock, literally sitting dead on one of the corners, hand out the window, jack me, here comes Steve-O. He wasn't really going to miss up on that opportunity, so he literally burst open the back of the frog eye. So that was the end of the car that Stephen tried to successfully defend his world title with. So it's he got good use out of it, but they all have to die eventually.
Yeah, no, it did look like you said, the numbers originally didn't look so great, but from everything I've seen from the meeting, it turned out to sound very entertaining overall. So I hope everyone went home pretty satisfied with what they saw that day. It's nice to see other drivers visiting and to get other people out as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, it's always good to travel. It's good to travel for a good day as well, because the last time drivers came to Ireland for Paddywhack, it was a little bit damp. Is all I say. Slightly exaggerated, a little bit damp. It was snow, wind, rain, a four seasons day. But anyway, moving on into the news, Ringwood Raceway have announced for next year having a pre-80 unders and overs meeting entitled The Happy Ending, which will be a return meeting for Mark, Mr. Happy Mitchell. A lot of interest initially. Do you think it'd be a good meeting? What do you think, Jordan?
Well, yeah, I think it will be. I think it should be as well. You know, I think Mark, Mr. Happy, is a great driver, brings out loads of great material. And I think it's a perfect opportunity for him to do it one last time at a track he has raced at in the past and done some and provided us with some great entertainment and done lots of crushing. And also think it could be a meeting that could possibly help Ringwood maybe get back on the map. I don't know what you guys think, but it struggled a lot recently, and I think it needs this kind of meeting to get everyone hyped up about the place again.
James, you want to give any opinion on that, or are we?
Yeah, so I think on that point, yeah, no, I think Ringwood does need that. I think in the past couple of years, ladies and gentlemen, sorry for that unfortunate little break. We had a red flag situation. Jordan Hollands, can I get a thumbs up from you?
Thumbs up.
Ed Fahey, can I get a thumbs up for you?
Thumbs up.
Then it's green, and back over to you, Ed.
Thank you, James. And apologies for our unscheduled break there. We were talking about the Mr. Happy meeting at Ringwood, so it seems that we're happy enough. It should be a good meeting. Any classic car meeting will always get a bit of interest, and there hasn't been a proper classic car meeting at Ringwood for quite a few years. But moving on, Arena Essex again had their one last time again. Jordan, were you there?
Yes, I was there for the
repeat of the one last time.
Yes, the repeat of the one last time at Arena Essex. Yeah, sorry about that. I was just making sure everything was okay and running again. Yeah, I know a lot of you commented on our Facebook page and said you didn't know about the event. To be honest, I don't really know where you were, because the event was posted on Facebook, on all of Remembering Arena Essex pages, on Oval Banger Chat. It was on. It was just everywhere. People were talking about it. And I've got to admit, the crowd was pretty disappointing, and I think secretly the people organising it, you know, Mark Jones, Paul Whiteman, Roy Rawlins, I think they were all a little bit disappointed that the 300 tickets on each night didn't sell out. But it was a really good night, watching old footage, watching the polo meeting back on DVD on the centre green, my first ever meeting at Arena Essex that pretty much got me to this point. Without the polo meeting, I don't know where I would be now. So yeah, it was a really good night. And I know, Red, before we started the show, you said about the new track that could be opening in Kent. I don't know if James wants to talk about that, or
just very quickly.
Tell our viewers?
Yeah, just very quickly, as one door closes, another one opens. Only today she was announced there's a possible new track in Thanet. I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly, in Kent. Judging by the news article we've posted on our Facebook page, it could be a shale track, because it does mention, if you look closely, on an oval soil track. It's an old go-karting track. It's at Manson Raceway off Ebbsfleet Lane North near Ramsgate in Kent. Could be brought back. Now, reading through the article, the developers Oval Sports, now I'm not sure if they're the same Oval Sport as Arena Essex, they seem to be very happy about it. We get visitors, we get tourists, obviously get visiting teams, depending on what kind of racing they're doing, it could be quite good. But of course, unfortunately, this day and age, there's a few detractors and objectors. They're saying it'll ruin the local community. There's a lot of noise. The people who, and the quote one of our protesters, the people who live here do so for the peace and quiet of the countryside. You've obviously never been to the likes of Skegness, Mildenhall, Swaffham. Nearly any banger track, to be honest, with the exception of, say, Birmingham, is a rural track. It's not really in the middle of a built-up area at all. You're usually driving for quite a while to a nice, quiet rural area, and all of a sudden, bang, there's a banger track right in the middle of nowhere. But it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I know it's only early days, but you're looking forward to it, Jordan.
Well, after the closure of Arena Essex, I think this will be great for the sport. And not only the closure of Arena Essex, but with everything that's happened with Wimbledon, Coventry, and is currently happening with Bellevue. I know we haven't lost that yet, but we know that there is a possibility of losing that track very soon as well. I think it can only be a good thing for the sport, and it just goes to show you that I think people are still open to stock car racing, and they realise the good and the potential it can bring to communities and to individuals as well. So, it can only be a good thing.
And James, you're another resident city slicker like myself. What do you think?
Well, I think all I can say is I can agree with what Jordan just said there. Is I think a lot of the time we think about stock car racing tracks in the fact that which is the next to be closed, without ever really thinking about what is the potential for opening more. Where can we open them? Can we put a track in a place where we're not going to have problems and actually build on the infrastructure? I think the fact a new track being opened is something that even I sort of forgot that could actually happen. And maybe, hopefully, people might look about where they could open another track in the future as well. Of course, there are the barriers to be jumped over, as you both mentioned. Noise. It's easier to say. It's easier to say with a track that's been there for ages. The track was here before you. Stop complaining about the noise. If you're opening in a new track, there'll never be a track opened in the sort of location, as you mentioned earlier, Ed, about where Wheels is opened in the middle of a city centre. But I'm just happy that there's talk about a track opening rather than track closing, really.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, any good track opening is good. It'll obviously proves there's still interest in oval racing, and I'm sure it won't just be bangers racing. This track, there could be a few other Formula A, be they be non-contact or not. I mean, it's an every man sport, and every man can do it if he wants to. So, I mean, any new track is a good thing. So let's wait and see what happens. We'll not get too excited yet, unfortunately. But it should be good if it does happen, of course. But moving on, this is something that we discussed earlier on, particularly when it came to Yarmouth. Post and wire tracks, are they too dangerous now, or are we all just turning into a bunch of softies with health and safety these days? The irony is, an awful lot of the best tracks, for example, Wimbledon and Swaffham, for anyone they remember back in the day, they were legendary for the post and wire. Never before was Roy Rollins' time you were going in being more significant. Because usually if you hit one of the posts, that was it. Your day was finished. And depending on what way you were pushed in, did someone completely follow you in or not? Could be a day over too, because those posts had the rather magical ability to completely destroy a car. And usually if you got caught around one, that was it. That was your day finished. But as we've seen lately, with certain formulae is that the cars are getting too fast, are the cars getting too soft, are they too strong? In other words, do they not bend around the post, which cause even more damage? James, what do you think about that?
Well, I think firstly, going from our debate earlier, there are, if we're talking, obviously this is a banger podcast, in terms of bangers, there is still a place for post and wire with bangers. It's not as a huge risk as long as the drivers respect what they're there to do and not deliberately try and injure people. But then, of course, bangers aren't the only things on that circuit. If other things have to race on that circuit that mean that post and wire puts a danger to them, that puts a danger to the entire meeting and the entire calendar that they have. Your other point about whether or not cars bend the same anymore, of course, in the grand old days of post and wire, in terms of the old Aldershot or at Wimbledon, the older cars would bend around the post and not try and take the post out of the ground. If it goes into the post and the energy can't be taken away by the car bending, the only other place for the energy to go is through the driver, which would almost certainly lead to injury or at least them being hurt. I don't think we'll ever see a new post and wire track, but the ones we have are there because they have to be, because they're in shared stadiums. Personally, I don't really like post and wire that much. Working as a marshal, I wouldn't really want to stand behind a post and wire. I'd much rather be standing behind an Armco, but post and wire is there for a reason on tracks where you can't put an Armco in, and that's basically my opinion on it.
No, that's a fair point. But the funny thing is, nearly every track, if you look closely, is post and wire, because those with Armco, if you look behind the Armco, there are posts and wires behind. So that's what gives the Armco its strength. But you would think as well that obviously the whole adage of, race on Sunday, work on Monday needs to be followed as well. Some people do try and take it a bit too far, unfortunately. But Jordan, you've been one who's kind of seen an awful lot of tracks being converted from post and wire to Armco. What do you reckon? Do we need to get rid of post and wire, or does it make it more interesting?
Well, I think it comes down to drivers' respect. If we're talking about national bangers, if you try and follow someone in on post and wire at the speeds they're going at now, it's just a no-go for me. I think that, post and wires aren't really suited for following ins anymore. I think we've seen some really nasty incidents. I remember one of the old London Opens, I think it was about 2005-06, Chris Hyde got followed in on turn 3, so on the pit bend, and his Nissan Bluebird actually went pretty much all the way through the post and wire. And I know, James, you just said about the Marshall. I really wonder what the Marshall on that bend for when he see that Bluebird come steaming in. It was an absolutely horrendous looking crash, and thankfully, Chris climbed out of it okay and still races to this day. But I also do think that post and wire, if you look at some of the hot rods and stock cars, they do spice up racing a little bit, even the fact that if someone's leading the race, if they clip a post and wire, that's pretty much their race over and done with. So it's a little bit like Monaco debate in Formula 1, people saying, is Monaco suited to modern day Formula 1? Yes, it is. But it's also risk involved that makes it something special. So I think drivers respect, but I also do think that post and wire isn't the way forward. I don't think we will see another post and wire track in this day and age. There
is a sort of inherent amount of respect required from the drivers with post and rail. I mean, we all know the reason we're talking about this is because of the Superstocks crash, but also this season, Joey had a final win taken from him because on the last corner he spun a back to basics banger driver towards the post and rail at Yarmouth and had the one took from him after the end of the race, because drivers are told you are not allowed to put people towards the post and wire in anything other than completely full contact racing. And those rules exist for Superstocks as well, and the reason we're talking about this is because a Superstocks driver put a driver towards the post and rail.
I think also what we've got to bear in mind, just changing the subject slightly, is the fact that if a car does go into a post and wire fence, it does a lot of damage to that post and wire. And in previous years, at Wimbledon meetings, probably at Great Yarmouth as well, when they need to repair the fence, it not only causes a big delay to the meeting, which could lead to cancellation or to races later in the evening being cancelled. It also probably costs a lot of money to keep trying to either repair posts, repair wires. So I think it is an expensive thing to try and maintain post and wire. I don't know for sure, but I imagine it is.
Well, also imagine the amount of times there have been 20-minute breaks. Well, there were 20-minute breaks at Wimbledon while they had to repair the post back into the ground before the race could continue.
I think we're nearly out of time, but we'll keep this discussion going very quickly.
I'll say we'll keep it going.
Yeah, the thing is that, like, the National Hot Rod guys racing on Wimbledon, they said that was the best track to race at because it was just the whole added attraction of the fence. Like, in other words, if you get it wrong and you're going to defence, your day's over. It's not like an arm car; you might just rub off it or whatever. But it kind of made it more exciting. Like, it's like Jordan was saying, it's like the Monaco Grand Prix. I mean, the fact that you literally can't get it wrong anywhere because there's very few runoff. I mean, and the fact that it's very hard to overtake. But we're not talking about Formula One anyway. You need to talk about that these days. We're talking about bangers. But no, it's interesting to see what happens. We wonder now, will the insurance companies have a look at that? Will they feel that post and wear these days is too much of a risk? But like a lot of tracks where the post and wear still exists, the other use for the track would dictate it, for example, in greyhounds or speedway. But it'd be interesting to see what happens anyway. When the next insurance renewal is due, or if health and safety get even worse. Unfortunately, that's in this day and age, that's literally what's going to happen. We'll move on to the fixtures. What's coming up in the next 2 weeks? Well, what we got first? We'll dig up my big massive list. What we'll do this time, instead of just listening off the fixtures, we're actually going to discuss the little meeting in general. First one we have is this Saturday coming, Milton Hall is big van buyers, and they have an entry at the moment of 17 vans. Do we think that's enough, or could we do it more?
Well, at a small track like Mildenhall, 17 vans is plenty for me. Obviously, the olden days when they used to get like over 30 and maybe even 40 vans, and bringing out a lot of old classics. That's what Mildenhall vans was famous for. It used to be a really good meeting, but we're not in this day and age going to see that anymore. So yeah, I think 17 vans is a really good entry, and I think it could be a really good night.
Do you think the likes of, say, Ireland's and big vans are killing it, or is it just a case of the whole supply of vans isn't as good as it used to be?
I think the whole supply of vans maybe isn't as good as it used to be. I think that vans nowadays, the likes of the Ford Transits and stuff, they've got so much technology in them, and even probably some of them have like hybrids and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think as everything changes in, the motoring industry, and I think, racing sort of has to adapt to it. But I think all the time there's plenty of buses, plenty of transits about, which there still are. I think van bangers will be okay for the future.
Unless Spike and the Surrey Street squad have them all put to one side, which I think they have. I think they're hoarding a few big vans anyway.
Yeah.
Then moving on the following day in Aldershot, Sunday 9th of June, we've the under 1800 National Mangers Aldershot Open. Now, the bookings aren't great for this one either, and this used to be a brilliant meeting, very well subscribed, nearly be turning people away. But it's got smaller and smaller over the years. Any ideas, James?
As of today, there are 12 cars booked in to this meeting. I was there last year. It was one of my Aldershot training meetings, and it was a pretty roddy affair all round, even last year. I think what needs to be brought up is that 4 weeks ago we had the Tongan Classic, which brought out one of the best banger races that everyone that went away said this was one of the best banger racing meetings I've been to in ages. I can't explain why people aren't booking in for this. Maybe it's just not something they want to win. I suppose all we can say is that categories that aren't national limited bangers, between that and the 3 litre oils for the Tongan Classic, you had 50 unlimiteds booked in for that and had an excellent meeting. We've got 12 booked in for Sunday. I don't really know what else to say other than that.
You could argue it's the time of year, really, couldn't you? A lot of people want to go on holidays, or we want to spend a roasting hot.
And I'm looking at the booking list now, and I think that a lot of the people booking in are there for attendance points and not entirely. It's not as it's not. They're not there to win the title. They're not there because they want to be the Aldershot Open title. It's not something they want to win. They're there. They're going for the national banger attendance points. And we've had this in various things before. Where do you go from here?
I think what also I find interesting is the fact that these under 1800cc non-Mondeo Aldershot Opens, we've spoke before about the gulf between rookie bangers and, you know, the Speedworth bangers and the national bangers. I think, in a way, these meetings are sort of designed for that. They're designed for people just coming out of maybe even back to basics, looking to go into domestic bangers in the future. I think this is a meeting that is suited for them. So I really don't know why there aren't more rookie drivers and more domestic banger drivers that have a boxer wash or something booked in that want to race.
The expense to be competitive, Jordan. I think that's probably it.
Yeah.
The expense to be competitive at this meeting is a lot more than would be expected for any other under 1.8 meeting at Aldershot. So the regular drivers that you might see racing are not going to build a car for this, when they know that the week after they can go in and actually be competitive in another race. So the only people that are booking in are people that want the attendance points.
Interesting, but not unexpected. And speaking of building a mad competitive car, we've the totally opposite the following weekend at Mildenhall. We've National Bangers Rust and Rubbish rear-wheel drive. Now, the beauty of this is it's the name. The clue is in the name, Rust and Rubbish. So bring any old scrapper you want to have a bit of fun with it. So, Jordan, do you think this will be more of a fun meeting, or do you think people might try and take it too seriously again?
Well, I'd hope that it being Rust and Rubbish, you're going to get a little bit of bilge there. I think it gives people the opportunity to race some of the old rubbish that they wouldn't want to race at a normal, 2-litre rear-wheel drive national banger meeting, or, a normal 2-litre national banger meeting, for instance. I think it gives people the opportunities to bring out the old rust, the old rubbish that they've got in their yards, and have a good time, throw it about and show. And Mildenhall's a track where it don't need big numbers, so even if it doesn't have big numbers, I'm sure drivers will try and get stuck in.
This thing as well, I mean, the shale is always a great leveller, pardon the pun, for cars, really. It always be a more entertaining meeting on shale. You won't get the speed up as much as you would on tarmac. So any thoughts on that one, James, or do you think just, like Jordan says, it's going to be a bit of fun rather than taking things too seriously?
Well, I very much hope it is. It does sound like it has the potential to be a very entertaining meeting all round. Like you said, shale is the leveller. How will people cope with it?
This is the thing. And on the same day, we've it's a world qualifying round Northampton Shaleway. It's 2-litre national bangers, but with a little bit of a difference. We're not allowed to race Mondeos or Cougars, so it's basically going to be wall-to-wall focuses and anything else under 2 litres that's fast, strong and competitive that you can find. So is this a sign of the times now that Mondeos are slowly starting to run out, or is this going to be something a little bit different? We might find that it could be a good meeting. What do you think, Jordan?
I do think that Mondeos are slowly running out, because I think you've seen it in the last couple of weeks and the last couple of years even. People are starting to turn to Ford Focuses for the normal national banger meetings. Like the ORCR National Banger World Final, that used to be pretty much Mondeos. You now get a couple of Focuses. I think that Tom Fox just last Sunday in the 2-litre World of Shell raced a Ford Focus, and actually very nearly won the World Final if he hadn't got taken out on opposite by a Gladiator. So yeah, I think it's a sign of the times, but I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, because without the Focus, what would drivers be racing? And it could possibly have seen the 2-litre bangers sort of disappear, really, which we don't want.
Well, this is the thing as well. I mean, you could argue that this is 20 years ago, we would have been saying, there's not much Granadas left. We're going to have loads of Cortinas and Capris of this. But I think it's just another sign of the times meeting. And, I mean, in a way, Speedworth's run Northampton should be commended for this one. What do you reckon, James?
Well, as Jordan said, I think it's basically got to the point now where the strongest car in the category that is freely available that is very easy to pick up at any scrapyard is the Focus. And people are running the Focus. And, again, it being on the Northampton Shaleway means that it's a track that has a bit of difference from where people might have raced it before. The Shale had a bit of difference to it, and I think just the fact there are so many Focuses available now, because if you look back through time where things were available, like you said, there's got to be an absolute gold mine of focuses available compared to Mondeo's at the moment.
I'd like to think so anyway, but like I said, we'll keep an eye on this one because this could be a sign of the future. Like maybe 15 years ago, when people started bringing him on out to me, like, what's that? He's not going to do well with that, and then all of a sudden, interesting. But the following day, then Morton Stockyard Club have a 2-litre National Bangers pre-90 meeting. Now, this would be more my kind of meeting. This would be more Bangers back in my day, as I'd say, not doing the Hovis accent. But I think in Morton, unfortunately, as good of a track it is, we're struggling a bit with numbers. So, do you reckon this will be a good meeting, or it could just be another 5-car rod fest?
Well, I think Wharton's one of them tracks where even if only 5 or 6 cars turn up, I think you're liable to get some sort of action, even if it is just in the final and DD. A lot of local drivers, like Jordan Topham, 181, the likes of Team V with Dalton Still, Bongang, lair drivers and teams that normally like a crash and aren't afraid to get stuck in with each other as well. So, I don't think it will get massive numbers personally, as it doesn't help that it's a day after the National Bangers Rust and Rubbish rear-wheel drive at Milden Hall, as we've previously talked about. But I do think it can be a good one. I don't know what James thinks about it, but
we still need to do our road trip up to Wharton like we promised.
Yes, we do. Yeah, we do. Caged trip up north.
Because we made a lot of friends by basically allowing them to tell me how badly we lost at Civil War. So we do need to come up to Wharton. If anyone at Wharton would like to extend the offer for me and Jordan, will come up and I will wear a T-shirt saying something such as "We lost, you win, you've won the bet," because Wharton does have such a great scene, and it is one of the places I need to tick off on my list.
That was the thing. We'll see what happens. 2-litre pre-90 bangers. It could be Cartanias, Capris, could be the old venerable Bluebirds as well. So I think it's a case of if the drivers can get the cars, it would be good. And we might get another of our video as well, like the old Transit going over the fence, which we discussed earlier on as well. Another freak accident, but made for interesting entertainment. And finally then, on Tullaroan Oval, Sunday week, the 16th June, we've under 1800cc back to basics. Now, DMC Race Motions, they're doing well. They're pushing back to basics in a big way. But what they haven't really said is, why aren't we running an unlimited back to basics? Now, I can understand under 1800cc, nearly any piece of crap that you want to use for B2B, you can find, whether it be an Astra, a Vectra, a Focus, a Fiesta, anything like that. But one thing that the drivers are saying is they'd prefer an unlimited back to basics because there's a few bigger cars out there, stuff like, say, Nissan Maxima or Toyota Camry, pretty much any big front-wheel drive saloon that's over 2 litres. I understand the unlimited back to basics scene in the UK is quite big. Do you comment on that, James?
Well, of course, the back to basics scene around the UK is quite big. It's basically what is... sorry, just 1 second, Ed. I'm trying to make sure we don't have another technical problem again. Yep, we're okay.
Yellow flags, waved yellows, waved yellows.
No, we're okay.
Back to green.
We can go green again. No, the back to basics scene down at Aldershot and down in the south has basically rejuvenated the domestic banger scene to the point that you can say to spectators, you are guaranteed to see some action. You'll see the DD. There will be some big crashes. You'll make sure there will be big numbers because people know that they can build cars and make sure they can turn out again and again. As far as I'm concerned, obviously I'm slightly biased, but the back to basics scene has rejuvenated and been a real shot in the arm for the Southern Banger scene, and I really hope that B2B does that elsewhere. And obviously, if DMC are pushing it Tullaroan, then hopefully it'll do the same for them as well, because it means that drivers can put together a car that they might be able to get free of charge or next to free of charge, put their safety equipment in it and be able to go out, entertain. They know they're not going to get blitzed in the first couple of heats. They know they'll be able to have a good race and it will be more entertaining again.
Yeah.
It's all about, what they're pushing back to basics with as well is, did you enjoy what you seen today? You could spend less than £500 and getting a car yourself. I think nearly the most expensive thing on B2B would be the driver safety equipment, helmet, overalls, collar, gloves, that kind of thing. Do you reckon that the under 1800 was better, Jordan, or what would you feel about this? You think just any back to basics is worthwhile?
I think any back to basics works well, really. I mean, I know James has mentioned the southern scene in the England. You know, places like Aldershot, it works wonders. But also Great Yarmouth as well. They've recently come off one of their best seasons in recent years with some amazing grids in back to basics, hitting over 20 cars each week in the height of the summer. And even, I think, Garden Night last year, they got 80 cars and it was fully booked. So I think not only for the drivers that race week in, week out, but I think for the locals as well that want to try their hand at back to basics, I think it's a great opportunity. And I know me and you were talking about unlimited back to basics over in Ireland before we went live. It allows drivers to bring out any sort of rubbish that they wouldn't want to race at a Shamrock or a Paddywhack meeting. So I really don't know why they're not pushing the unlimited back to basics as much as the under 1800s. But as long as it gets new drivers involved, I think that's the main thing, and that's what back to basics is about, really.
Absolutely, Jordan. The one thing I will say on top of that is that every promotion needs to make sure that back to basics stays within the spirit. Across every promotion, the more back to basics goes on, there has been a little bit of I'm going to try and outdo you in this race, and then because you outdid me in this race, I'm going to outdo you in the next race. That's how rookie bangers became bangers, which lost the rookie word completely. And I think back to basics has something special, and I want to make sure that every promoter will make sure that the back to basics ethos and what it's about carries on and goes forward.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, it's an evolution of sport. And sometimes, banger racing, we evolve backwards rather than forwards. But I mean, any progression is good. Anything that gets new drivers into it is good too. Because I mean, if you look at unlimited meetings, it's nearly you nearly call it an elitist sport. You need to be at the car every night of the week. And this is probably why Keith Reynolds is pushing the back to basics so much. He's been doing this for nearly 40 years, out every week getting the cars ready, out every night of the week getting the cars ready. So sometimes you just want to have a bit of a race as well as a life outside of racing. But I think that brings the discussion to the end for the evening. It's been very interesting as always. We hope we'll be back in a week or two with more discussions, how we're getting on, more reports, and more good old-fashioned discussion. So it gives me great pleasure to say thank you very much to our two panelists for the evening. And thank you, Jordan.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Ed. And just one last thing before we wrap up. We are very, very close to 10,000 likes on our Facebook page. I think we are just over 100 off it. So if you know anyone that hasn't liked the page, tell them to like it. It isn't going to hurt. It isn't going to cost anything. And hopefully we can celebrate 10K very soon.
Very much so. And thank you again for our Orange Army man, but also the guy who was crucially running everything in the background. Thank you very much, James.
Thank you very much, Ed. Of course, it did go wrong a little bit technically tonight, so I apologise to everyone listening at home. Thanks to everyone who tuned into both parts, and hopefully it won't happen again.
That's the main thing. And if you're listening back to this version on YouTube or on our podcast, you won't notice any gaps at all. But thank you again. I've been Ed Fahey. Thanks for listening into Cage. Speak to you soon.